Well, your mama might not dance and your daddy might not rock and roll, but Aaron Torres does both. As a radio host on Fox Sports Radio.
He was born rock and rolling.
Kentucky Sports Radio, the host of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. And it is his time of the year as we are into very close to tournament basketball time. And we got a huge game tomorrow here in Fayetteville. Can't wait to get that going. AT, how you doing, man? I know you're fired up about Arkansas, huh?
Yeah, no, I mean, I am. I'm really excited. Listen, what I would say with Arkansas is obviously, look, I watch a lot of these teams, but, honestly, and I'll say this in all sincerity, coming on with you guys, I pay a little bit closer attention. I know that I have to come on and sound smart as opposed to say, a team that, I don't go on every week. So I bring it up to say that what's been cool about this season, and I think it's the fun part of being a sports fan, and I'm not saying that I'm an Arkansas fan as much as I am just a fan of what's being built. It's been cool to watch the team kind of grow and develop, really in front of our eyes over the course of the season. And it's been a weird year with all the COVID and so many new players and all that stuff, but to see the growth of Devo Davis, to see the growth of Jalen Williams, to see, this concept that Eric Musselman would never play freshmen over his beloved transfers, to see how Jalen Tate has evolved where, I don't know if you guys heard the same things, but I was hearing some stuff in the winter or in the fall, about, this kid can't play at this level. The early returns are that he's just out of his element. And so I think that's been the fun part. I mean, obviously a lot of the goodwill will go out the window if you don't win against LSU at home on Saturday. Not to say that it'd be, a crushing loss or anything, but obviously you want to keep building the momentum. But I think that's been the cool part for me is to watch this team grow, evolve, things like that.
And the players deserve a lot of credit for that because they're the ones essentially that have to learn how to gel and take the coaching and everything. But, we've even had some fans who've been critical of Musselman during that stretch in January when Arkansas dropped. I forget if it was 5 or 6, but everybody's coming around now, and I think it's obvious. This has been a masterful coaching job because this is the first time that he's put together a team that's built like this. It was all transfers at Nevada. And, when you have older guys and younger guys coming together to bond the way that this team has, and Muss was working on that from the very start, even in the early part of the pandemic, I think this has been a spectacular coaching job, and still there's plenty of season left.
Well, 100%. And, to go back to the Nevada stuff, I mean, first of all, most of those Nevada guys, even 3-4 years ago, the waiver process was a lot less, diligent than it is now. And, I mean, I look back to his last Nevada team. I mean, Cody and Caleb Martin played there 2 years but sat out for a season as transfers. Trayshawn Thurman sat out. Nizre Zuzwa. I know these are names that don't ring a bell for most Arkansas fans, but most of these guys were not only were not only playing as transfers, older college players, but they had a year in the program. And so you look at how well Jalen Tate, Justin Smith have played this season, and to me, Phil, it's about the freshmen though, man, because I just got to say, I've been in those practices. They're not easy. And you're going to be pushed physically, you're going to be pushed mentally, you're going to be pushed emotionally. And so, maybe it's a little easy for Moses Moody because everybody knows you need Moses Moody to go get you 15, 16, 18 points a game to win. But I still go back to Devo Davis. I still go back to Jalen Williams and the mental toughness that you need to have to play in this program. It's been a masterful coaching job. And again, I think it's under, circumstances that I still don't think we understand. It's one thing to do something like this in a normal off season where you have the kids over to the pool and you hang out and you have fun. It's quite another to do it in this off season, in this season where the only time you're really spending with them is in the practice facility and stuff like that. I agree, Phil. Masterful coaching job. And I still don't think coaches across the country, not just Eric Musselman, are getting the full credit they deserve for everything they've done this season.
So I think it's great that, Arkansas plays Bama and LSU the same week, just like they did in January when they were a completely different team. And that was obviously on display in the win over Alabama earlier this week. It isn't the same team. Well, I want to ask about LSU because, their loss to Georgia really does make you scratch your head a little bit, but they were playing pretty well before that. They put up over 100 against Auburn. They'd beaten Tennessee. Was that just a little blip, or is the loss to Georgia something that LSU fans have to worry about, especially coming in here to Bud Walton tomorrow?
This is who they've been all year. They're really talented, and people can insert their own commentary on how all that talent got to LSU. But they're really talented, and they played really well. They played up and down. They dominated Tennessee about 2 weeks ago. They had Texas Tech on the ropes and completely beaten in the Big 12 SEC Challenge. So this is a team that, at their best, they're phenomenal, but they don't always play at their best now. And so, I don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes and all that stuff, but when this team is locked in, I mean, they're a team. I just look at, you mentioned tournament basketball, Phil. I mean, you look at them, they probably have two guys that could be first-round picks this year, Trendon Watford and Cam Thomas, and probably another two or three that are going to, that I don't know about two or three, but they have a lot of guys that are really good at basketball. And I look at them as like a potential 10 seed in the tournament, and they could lose their opener by 20. They could be in the Sweet 16 and make a 2 seed like a Virginia or an Iowa or somebody like that look really bad. And so that's kind of who they've been all year. And I will admit, it's not always going to be, roses and butterflies when Torres comes on. I think it's a really scary spot for Arkansas. I mean, can you bring back that emotion on a Saturday night after a big Wednesday night win against a really talented team that desperately needs this win? I think it'll be a fun game, but like you said, Phil, the Razorbacks are obviously a completely different team than the one that went to Baton Rouge about 6 weeks ago.
Aaron Torres from Fox Sports joining us here on Halftime. AT, you mentioned tournament teams and that LSU could potentially be in that mix. Let's talk about Arkansas just for a little bit more here. Right now, as it stands, do you think Arkansas is a Sweet 16 team?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the bracket, and it does depend on the seeding, too. I think we're comfortably past, barring something catastrophic, you're not going to get in that 8-9 game where you're going to have to play a Michigan, a Baylor, Gonzaga. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the latest – let me ask you, let me backtrack, Matt. What is the latest bracketology, like 5, 6 seeds somewhere in there right now?
We've seen 5 or 6. I believe it was Jerry Palma, CBS Sports, had Arkansas as a 3 seed at the highest. The highest we've seen is 3. The majority, though, that I've seen, AT, is about 5 or 6.
Gotcha. So, yeah, to answer your question, yes, and I'd say a couple things to that. One, absolutely. I mean, I do think there's a tier of about 3 teams that are significantly better than everybody else, but Arkansas would not be seeing them on the opening weekend. And it goes back to what I've said from the beginning. Athletically, skill-wise, there aren't going to be many teams that walk in the gym that can overwhelm them. And so to me, yeah, I think it's absolutely in the cards without seeing a bracket. I don't know if it should be expected at this point, but what I would say is a couple of things. One, the seeding is going to work out nice for them. And two, I also think you have to consider, how a team's playing. I mean, Alabama's a perfect example. I love Nate Oates. I think what he's done is incredible. But I don't think it's any secret that team is not playing the way that they were 5-6 weeks ago. Would you rather be a 2 seed as Alabama or a 4 seed as Arkansas right now based on how the two teams are playing? I'd rather be a 4 seed as Arkansas.
Fair.
And so I think that's what's most important is keeping this momentum. Listen, I don't expect them to not lose a single game between now and the start of the NCAA tournament with LSU and obviously with an SEC tournament coming up. But you got to keep this kind of edge to you. You got to keep this laser-like focus to you. As I kind of led the segment, this team has continually improved over the course of SEC play, and you got to keep getting better. Alabama can't be the highest of the highs. It has to be another step up the mountain. What a great quote, by the way. I made that right off the top of my head.
That was really good. Really insightful of you, my friend. Couple more minutes over there in Torres here real quick. ATS, we have this Twitter follower at Hog Stats, and he does some incredible stuff that really gets in depth with Arkansas basketball and just Arkansas sports in general. But he drew a really cool comparison between Moses Moody and Joe Johnson through the first 23 games as a freshman. And Joe Johnson and Moses Moody are right there neck and neck as far as like points per game, 3-point percentage, everything about it. But my question is Moses Moody probably the best draft prospect that Arkansas has had in, say, the past 10, 15 years, maybe since Joe Johnson? Or what do you think to that?
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment, Matt. And I think it goes back to the previous coaching staff. By the way, did you guys see St. John's fans were attacking your boy Torres on Saturday night and Sunday morning? I don't know if you guys saw this, but St. John's lost to DePaul last weekend. Basically, they're cruising towards an NCAA tournament bid, and they lose to DePaul, and I said, this is so Mike Anderson, it hurts. And, I like Mike Anderson. I think he's a great guy. I think he was mostly good for Arkansas basketball, but this is kind of his reputation. I had St. John's fans, this is the most disrespectful thing. Who are you? And then they started with, I never even heard of this guy. What do you do, your podcast in your parents' basement? And I'm like, come on. I'm like, come on, man. We're really going here. Like, I don't care. But, national radio show, 2 best-selling books. I don't want to drop numbers on the podcast. Between podcast and YouTube, I would say, and a national radio show on 400 stations nationwide.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm a nobody. I wouldn't say I'm a somebody, but I'm definitely not a nobody. So they were attacking me. But I bring all this up, Matt, because it does play into your question. St. John's fans are really dumb. Oh, no, that wasn't part of it. Is that Mike Anderson, this was a criticism, right? Is that I know he recruited some of these elite guys. Malik Monk is one that comes to mind, but he was a developmental, let's get a guy in the program 3 years and build him up guy. And I do think that is not really how you can coach at the elite, the highest levels of college basketball. Now, some guys can, but to answer your question, I do think Moses Moody is probably the best draft prospect since I've been covering college basketball from Arkansas. And it's due to the fact that, is that a guy, and you guys might know, is that a guy Mike Anderson would have even considered recruiting? I know that Mike Anderson really wasn't interested in Devo Davis. He wasn't interested in K.K. Robinson. I don't know where he stood on Moses Moody, but Mike Anderson kind of, I hate to say it, but he had that, I'm gonna, what's the blackjack? I'm gonna hit on, some guys hit on 15, some guys stay. He strikes me as a stay on 15 kind of guy. And, in recruiting in 2021, if you want to win at the highest level, you need players. And a guy like Moses Moody, I don't know if that's the kind of guy that Mike Anderson would have even pursued, let alone been able to sign.
Isn't that crazy to think about? Mike, maybe not necessarily that, like, he didn't recruit Devo Davis, K.K. Robinson, or anything like that. Phil, we also got to give AT credit because April 7th, 2019, he called Eric Musselman a home run hire for Arkansas.
Hell yeah.
And it's looking pretty good. It's looking like your assessment's pretty strong here. 18-5 right now in the top 20 team, and maybe getting even higher as the rest of the season goes on.
Yeah.
Well, and what the great thing is, this blueprint is now sustainable. Is that what were the questions coming in? Well, how many guys can? How the transfer market's getting tougher. How are you going to be able to adjust? Well, Justin Smith and even Connor Vanover, even J.D. Note, as long as you're truthful with the kid, and there's a million kids that can average 15 a game at the mid-major level that can come and contribute off the bench like J.J. Note has. As long as they don't come in thinking they're going to be stars, that's one thing. And then also the high school recruiting. I think this has been huge for Eric Musselman because, and it's so different now because players, you can't go talk to players. But we know what his reputation was. He knows what his he won't play high school play. You're going to go there, you're going to sit on the bench, and you're going to transfer. He'll never give you a shot. Well, Devo Davis got a shot. Jalen Williams got a shot. Moses Moody, team leading scorer. So, listen, could this be the best that it ever gets? Of course, there's always that possibility. And I don't know what the future holds, but I knew what he did at Nevada would translate. I know how hard he coaches his players. By the way, I would encourage everyone to listen to Thursday's Aaron Torres pod. I did a pretty lengthy Arkansas segment, but I know how hard he pushes his players. I know how much they get better over the course of the season. I know how fearless they are in big games. And so it's been cool to see it come together. But no, Matt, it really isn't surprising for me. I saw him do this at Nevada out here on the West Coast, and it's not surprising that he's having success at this higher level. I think it's actually kind of incredible, honestly, how well both he and Nate Oates have transitioned to the SEC. So let's give a little credit to Alabama as well, because I think they're a really good team built for the future as well.
I think you're right. AT, we got to go. Appreciate you, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks, AT.
Keep messing with Queens. That's always fun.
Please.
Yeah, it's okay. I had the Hog fans in my mentions. I have in my back, so we're good.
We got you. We got your back.
That's right about that.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, AT.
With us every Friday from the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. You go at St. John's. I guess you don't realize there's actually a fan base for St. John's.
All 10 of them.
Queens is a tough place to be messing with people.
That's true. So it's also tough to mess with them in Fayetteville.
Get in the face at Hit That Lines Podcast Network. It's the place to find all the best online content from the Morning Rush, from halftime, including our interview with AT, if you didn't hear all of it. Hog Talk, Trusting the Process, Primetime Preps, Ruskin and Zach. You just got to search hit that line wherever you listen to podcasts. Made possible by Breeden RV Center, family-owned and operated, no pressure, laid-back atmosphere, and always home of free maintenance for life. And guess what we have, folks? Baseball tickets, 2 pairs to the Arkansas game today. We're going to give a pair away next. Stay with us.